Next, we have Phyllis Karak. Phyllis is a previous board member for the Parliament of the World's Religion, a longtime friend and an ally over the years. Phyllis is the first public Wicca princess. She's an attorney and an author whose groundbreaking book, published in 14 countries, made Wicca accessible to the world and awakened an entire generation of goddesses. I'd like to present to you Phyllis.
I'm so not a princess. My mother might have disagreed. I am the daughter of Adele, and the granddaughter of Anne, and the great-granddaughter of Fanny, and I am a witcher. I am a memory holder of the women murdered during the witch craze, the women's Holocaust. After that music, and looking out on you and knowing this community for so long, I know that the truth I want to share with you will be received and is a truth that needs telling. And I know that I am in welcoming company, and that is the heart of reconciliation. So I come to speak truth, not to accuse, but to seek reconciliation. And I know that the message here radiates outward into the world, and it is for those who have trouble coming forward into the reconciliation process that some of my remarks are addressed. And I'm going to shorten them up a little bit because you've all been so kind and the hour is growing late. It's an honor to be here tonight and to be part of this very important conversation. And I am here to speak for sisters who are not present to speak. All reconciliation does rely on our ability to speak honestly and to listen with open hearts. And tonight I ask all of us to do both, and to ask those who might hear in other places to do so with both. Because once again, I am going to address the forbidden third rail of religion, which is the dignity and equal rights of women. The global and human rights issue of our time. Violence and child marriage, slavery and forced prostitution, rape and sexual assault, domestic brutality and abuse, honor killings and immolation, bodily and genital mutilation, gendercide of girls, and selective abortion of female fetuses, and the legitimized murder of women are pandemic. 700 million women were children when they were forced into marriage. More than 133 million girls have experienced genital mutilation. Every year, more than 20,000 women will be victims of honor killings, usually perpetrated by their fathers or their brothers or an uncle. Women have little or no voice, not even regarding our most basic freedoms, to control our own bodies, to move about freely, to own property, to choose to marry or obtain a divorce, to retain custody of our children, to receive an education, to simply work, or even to have our testimony given equal weight in court. It seems difficult for us to imagine that because we are people of greater privilege, but this is the plight of hundreds of millions, of billions, in fact, of billions of women. These are the truths of the lives of, in fact, 1 billion women around the world. For thousands of years, these violations of women's dignity and human rights have been based on the false premise that men and boys are superior to women and girls. It's an outdated view, and it's been perpetuated by too many religious leaders and institutions and adherents who have misinterpreted or deliberately used carefully selected scriptures and texts and teachings to proclaim the inferiority of women and of girls. Religion has played a role in imposing constraints on women's basic freedoms to be safe and healthy and to live free of fear. The door to formal leadership remains closed in too many traditions, and injustice remains dictated by men who claim their actions are backed by faith. The world's religions can no longer allow the domination, the subjugation, and the violation of half of humanity. To do so is to break faith. The justification of discrimination against women and girls on the grounds of religion or tradition, as if it were prescribed by a high authority, is unacceptable. And I will keep saying it until it is no longer true. Women have been told we need to wait until the current crisis is resolved before we can focus on the rights and dignity of women. We were told that we had to end the nuclear arms race. We were told that we had to end the war in Vietnam. We were told we had to end terrorism. And mistakenly and sadly, today we are even being told that we need to solve climate change before we can focus on women's rights and dignity. But we cannot wait any longer, because in fact, none of the issues that we are facing can be solved without the full participation of women. And women cannot fully participate without their rights, their dignity, and their safety. And in fact, there is a direct, practical, and spiritual connection between the domination of women and the destruction of our planet. The devastation and the desacralization of both are historically and religiously intertwined. The problem of our wrong relationship with the earth can only be resolved by our right relationship with women. The solution to the issues of war, of terrorism, and climate change are all symptoms of our broken faith that arose through our domination of women. The healing of the earth requires healing the soul-shattering division between men and women. The Global Ethic of 1993 stated that there will be no peace in the world until there is peace between religions. But there will be no peace within religions and no peace with Mother Earth until there is peace and reconciliation between men and women. Religious leaders have always played critical roles in the social justice issues of their times. And it is time for faith leaders to accept their moral responsibility to ensure that women who risk being ostracized and abused or killed if they speak up or act to challenge their abusers will not be alone. It is time for religious leaders to receive the stories of women, to stop the deprivation and the violence, to stop harmful teaching and practices that justify discrimination and abuse, and to ensure that women are fully involved in decision-making within religions, to open their hearts to the full participation of women. Institutions do not engage in reconciliation. It is people. It is time to receive the stories of women, to take responsibility for the damage done, time to take the actions necessary to transform a history of harm into a future of reconnection, wholeness, and the fulfillment of our faiths. I have to skip ahead because I only have moments left. In 2015, the Parliament of the World's Religions adopted the Declaration for the Dignity and Human Rights of Women. It was a courageous act of gender reconciliation. The principle of treating others the same way one wishes to be treated is stated in one form or another throughout the religions of the world. We are all interconnected and interdependent, and when half the human race suffers, we all suffer. We must all be treated with justice, with respect, with kindness, and with love. The Declaration reset the moral compass, and it declared that it is impossible to imagine a God, a divine source, a sacred and ultimate reality that is unjust. There is no religion that really despises women, for hatred and oppression cannot come from the heart of God or Goddess or Holy Mother, Father, that it cannot flow from that which is divine, from Creator, from one, the source, the all, by whatever name you call it. I'm going to sum up. I want to share a memory with you where I bore witness to a profound moment of really true reconciliation. It happened at a very small interfaith gathering in Texas, and as we began, a young Indigenous woman stood up, and she was struggling with tremendous emotion, and she expressed the pain, the terrible pain, that her people's subjugation had, and her own subjugation had suffered. And she held in her hand these very heavy braids of black cloth. And she told us that they were symbols of her people's grief and her own. And she asked if someone would take them from her. And the room was very silent for a moment. And then a Presbyterian minister, a middle-aged white male, and he was comfortable ministering to one of Dallas's most wealthy communities. He stood up, and he stepped forward, and he reached out, and he said, "I will take them from you." He has since become a good friend, as I knew in that moment his life was going to change forever. He was compelled by his faith. He was moved by her suffering to truly live the gospels of his own faith, to take away the sufferings of another, and to take personal responsibility for her pain, whether he was personally responsible for it or not. That was a moment that began a reconciliation. Gender reconciliation summons us into the heart of our deepest religious convictions. It calls us to live our faith, to heal the wounds that have separated us from one another. And when we are truly present with each other, the divine is present within us and with us, and we are shown who we are and who we are meant to be. We are shown the love that binds all wounds and heals all hearts and makes us whole again. Thank you for hearing my story.